Williams. Kia ora.
Maitaki, Mr Chairman. Thank you very much. I was hoping to speak on part one of the bill last night. The opportunity didn't happen, so thank you for the opportunity to speak on part three. I wanted to talk about how excited we were in the community family violence sector to be given the chance to make submissions on the Green Paper for Vulnerable Children, the process that kick-started the development of this bill. The organisation that I was with at the time worked really hard in partnership with many agencies in the community to ensure that we had as many people as possible that had the opportunity to present their ideas on the paper. We even co-hosted the Minister on one of her roadshows, and I recall thanking the Minister at the time for providing us the opportunity to work on what I thought was going to be the most important children's legislation for many years. It does seem at this point to be a bit of a wasted opportunity. There were over 8,000 submissions made, and all of the ones that I read clearly stated it was impossible to make a worthwhile submission without a working definition of vulnerability. That rather than targeting, universality of services was the preferred option, and that we should define and measure the outcomes we wanted for our children. The sector was clear. We should set out our bottom lines for children: warm, dry housing, access to medical care, food to eat, decent education, being safe. You can say that that's what we want for all of our kids. But when you make a statement about what you want for your kids, you need to be brave enough to measure your work against it. You need to be brave and ambitious for our kids. So specifically in part three, there are a couple of parts I want to talk about: family group conferences and Home for Life. While I support the intent that every child deserves to be in a stable home environment, that the responsible caregivers and that child benefit from the formalisation of this agreement that permits the carers to enact their duty lawfully, I worry about the number of children who have been harmed while in the care of those carers. The intent of this bill is to protect children from harm, but so many have actually been harmed while in the care of the state-supported caregiver. Let's face it, the government has been a bad and neglectful parent. While I express concern at this aspect, I must also, from personal experience, tell you that I am not comfortable with the Ministry's ability to assess and monitor those people that we entrust our children to. I do not in any way want to diminish the work of our child, youth and family social workers. They have extraordinary workloads and they do the very best that they can, but they have way too much to do. The Minister herself said in the House yesterday that the numbers of notifications and investigations was increasing, an ever-increasing burden on the teams of social work staff to get the job done and done properly. And I have, through very dear friends of mine, some knowledge of when this can go wrong. My friends, a lovely couple who at the time had a 10-year-old, became caregivers. They wanted to share their home with another child. So they filled in the application, submitted to the police vetting, attended a couple of meetings and were partway through their security process. Partway through the vetting process, it wasn't completed by the Ministry, only to get a request for a placement to be made with them. A very troubled 16-year-old boy was placed in their care. Why was this boy placed in their care before they had completed proper security clearances? Because the Ministry is desperate for somewhere to place our children. It's not just him. There is an extraordinary amount of pressure on the staff to find suitable placements. And often, as in this case, there is not enough time to complete all the processes. There is just a child needing a placement and the staff acting in the best way that they can to get the job done. In the case of my friends, it didn't go well. It could have gone better. But when the boy that was placed with them started acting out in a sexually inappropriate way towards their 10-year-old son, they had to call Child, Youth and Family to take him back. They could not put their... Mr Chairman?
The Honourable Member, Potu Williams.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. They could not continue to put their own child at risk. This situation speaks to me of the woeful lack of support the Ministry has for its placement teams, that they have to rush through prospective caregivers without proper checking in order to fill placements for kids. And they do not match the placements well. Mismatched placements do not make for successful placements. I have to say, from my dealings with Child, Youth and Family, there are significant staffing resource pressures in every area of social work. The Minister confirmed it yesterday when she said that notifications and investigations were increasing, and yet this bill, which could have delivered so much to, as my colleague said yesterday, to stop the children from falling in the stream, it is not delivering enough. So if we want to ensure safety of our children in a Home for Life placement, we need to ensure that we are doing everything we can to make that placement safe for all involved. I also welcome the intent to strengthen the family group conference process. Family group conferences are a great mechanism to gain the support of the child's wider community, be it grandparents, aunts and uncles and other people keen on ensuring the child does well, teachers, social workers and the like. I know, having sat in on a few of these conferences, that they are staff resource heavy, and as the process of engagement is set out in legislation, it must be followed accurately to comply. In this regard, I support any measure that makes the process easier on the child and the family while retaining its robust character. I do worry that the increasing use of the family whānau agreements, which are not binding, will increase as the level of resourcing for FGCs is high in comparison. I mentioned my concern for the staffing resources available to Child, Youth and Family to conduct their core businesses, as I have seen firsthand how hard they work, but when they are required to do more and more investigations and respond to increasing levels of notification, I worry that they are only able to give these cases the most cursory of attention. I want to pick up on a comment that Jan Logie made yesterday regarding family violence, about the incidence of family violence as a factor of vulnerability for children. And you're absolutely right. The Chief Social Worker, Paul Nixon, talks about the unholy trinity in relation to the top 3 indicators of vulnerability for children that come to the notice of Child, Youth and Family. And they are when the parent is impacted by mental illness, problematic substance abuse and family violence. The unholy trinity is the unholy trinity in vulnerability for kids, but it's a big concern. Family violence being a factor in that child's home is not an automatic criteria for Child, Youth and Family to investigate the safety in that child's life. Not widely known, but family violence in the home does not meet the threshold for which Child, Youth and Family are required to investigate. Only when family violence is a repeated issue in that child's life. How much trauma must a child experience before our Child, Youth and Family social workers will be permitted to investigate and intervene? It's astonishing and it's very wrong, and it's so not in keeping with the intent of this bill that make our most vulnerable children safer. If Child, Youth and Family do not, as a matter of right, investigate when family violence is a feature in a child's life until that harm is well and truly done, then what can be done for that child? There are too many kids impacted by family violence for the social workers to deal with. So we have a bill called the Vulnerable Children's Bill with no working definition of vulnerability, where the Chief Social Worker's definition of vulnerability includes family violence, and we don't intervene when family violence is present. Are you confused? I certainly am. Thank you, Mr Chairman.
I call the Honourable Member Jan Logie.
Thank you, Mr Chair.
Tēnā koe, Ms Logie.